one thing that became very clear to me and many of my contemporaries was that the cliche of the Irish as, we are the people of the feckless Celtic imagination. We are the dreamers of dreams and the singers of songs. And it's the English or the Anglo-Saxon mind that does science and philosophy and other kinds of rational, logical activities. Now, that was kind of twofold. On the one hand, it chimed, ironically, with the colonizing view that the Celts can stay quaint and stay put and stay home. Or if they come to us, they come to entertain us. Oscar Wilde with his plays and Yeats and the Celtic Twilight poets with their verse and so on. And the whole kind of Ushian mythology. But woe betide that they be given home rule. And even Matthew Arnold in the 1880s and 1890s was arguing, that the Anglo-Saxons have the rational mind, the scientific mind, the philosophical mind, and so have a prerogative over political order and government, whereas the Celts have this wayward, wonderful, entertaining, exotic imagination. So the Irish mind was a way of trying to show how historically, by taking some of our finest scientists and philosophers and writers, it's a both and, it's not an either or. And of course, mind embraced both imagination and reason. It wasn't a backlash against imagination and saying, we've had enough talk about the poets and the painters and the playwrights, now it was actually saying we have both. A bit like the Good Friday Agreement, allowing for the first time that you can be both British and Irish. You can be British or Irish or both. Now that formula, which is so simple, took so many decades, if not centuries, to formulate. But it is the principle of both and, that you can be both British and Irish and inhabit the island of Ireland. There was a real sense of the both and taking over from the either or. And that applied both to reason and imagination, both to British and Irish, both to North and South, Catholic, Protestant, or theist, atheist, and also to, I think, the question of what is your home? Because traditionally your home was where you grew up. And if you left it, it was kind of a tragedy or a trauma. But now it became something different, and economic circumstances were a huge part of this. But the idea of a double residence, psychic or literal, empirical, became a reality that people could travel abroad and work abroad. Most students worked in either Britain or America to earn their fees when I was growing up, or indeed continental Europe. But then subsequently, a lot of Irish minds saw no problem about living outside of Ireland and yet retaining a deep attachment, in some respects, and sometimes a deeper attachment to Ireland, precisely because they lived abroad. I know in my own case this was so. But I think that's very important for a lot of Irish people abroad, the sense of retaining the connection and of being at home and abroad at the same time. So the double residence, double belonging, double identity, if you wish, is not a schizophrenia. It's actually something quite salutary as a porous interchange between, what is familiar to you and what is foreign. And I think it was Joyce who said somewhere in one of his books that his aim was to mix the foreign and the familiar. And I think that's true of a lot of Irish minds. Even if they don't leave Ireland, the exposure to ideas that are unfamiliar, strange, foreign has actually been very conducive to new ideas and to creative ideas. Whereas the old fear that came from a narrow Catholicism and a narrow nationalism that did no service either to the Catholic faith or to the nation of Ireland. The regime of fear that outside influences will corrupt us, that we are somehow pure, and that exposure to the other, the adversary, the alien, will corrupt the body politic. And that mix of sort of nationalist, ethnic purism with Catholic Jansenistic Catholic Jansenistic Puritanism led to a situation where there was this kind of allergy to the alien. And I think that's what fell apart very much culturally and socially and intellectually in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And I think we're in a very different place now.